Okay, so remember on Friday how we were trying to figure out the perfect square number that would go in the blank, and we said that we just have to take half of the 14 and square it, so that's 49. And here we said we would take half of 2 and square it, so half of 2 is 1, 1 squared was 1, half of 8 was 4, 4 squared was 16. So what we're going to be doing today is combining that with the other thing that we did on Friday, which was to figure out the shortcut to go from this to this. So remember on Friday when we talked about that, we said that we would just take half of this term, and that's the number that goes there. So half of negative 6 is negative 3. Half of positive 22 is positive 11. And then we tried these. So half of 16 was positive 8. So we had x plus 8 squared. And here half of negative 10 was negative 5. So we had x minus 5 squared. So we're going to put that together in order to write an equation to change it from general form to standard form. So the first thing we have to do is rearrange the problem. So we want it to have all of our x's together and all of our y's together. And when I do that, I'm going to also make sure that I leave myself some space, because I got to figure out what that number is that I need to add to the sides, like we did with the 49 and such on the slide before last. So I've got x squared minus 10x plus, I'm going to figure out what number goes here for the x's. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the y. So I've got positive y squared plus 8y plus, I've got to figure out what's going to go there. Now this number I want to move to the other side, so I got to do the opposite. It's negative 8, so to move it over, I'm going to add 8 to both sides. Now remember, when you have an equation, you always, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So I added a space here for the x's, so I'm going to add a space on this side for the x's. I added a space here for the y, so I'm going to add a space for the y. So whatever number I decide goes in that space, I have to add that to both sides of the equal sign. Alright, so just like in the slide before last, we take half of this term and square it. So half of 10 is 5, 5 squared is 25. So I add 25 to this pink space here. I add 25 to this side, because whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. For this one, half of 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16, so I'm going to add 16 to both sides. Now, this is where we use the shortcut for the factoring. So I want to figure out what would go in parentheses squared for the x's. I have to figure out what will go in parentheses squared for the y's. And then on this side, I'm just going to add these terms together. Alright, so over here to figure out the shortcut, again, remember half of that middle term. So half of negative 10 is negative 5, so x minus 5. Over here, half of 8 is 4, so I make that y plus 4, and then I add those together. So 25 plus 16 plus 8. Of course, I don't have a calculator handy. So 11 and 8 is 9, carry the 1, so 49. Alright, so if I need to identify then the center and the radius, it's really easy. The center, again, remember we take the opposite, so positive 5, negative 4. Remember, this number is r squared, so r squared is 49. Take the square root, so the radius is 7. Alright, so this is our standard form. And then this is our center and radius. Alright, so we'll do 2 more together, and then I'll let you try the next one on your own. But again, just rearrange first. So I'm going to make this x squared minus 14x and leave myself some space. Y squared, there's no other y part, so I don't have to leave a space for the y. And I'm going to move that 24 over. It's positive 24, so I'm going to subtract it from both sides. So that gives me negative 24 on this side. Then I only have one number to figure out. So half of negative 14 is 7. 7 squared is 49. So I add 49 to both sides. And then we'll do the shortcut for factoring. So parentheses squared here. Again, there's nothing with the y, so I'm just going to bring down the y squared. And I'll go ahead and add these two together. So positive 49 and negative 24 would be 25. Alright, so shortcut to factor, half of negative 14 is negative 7. So x minus 7 squared plus y squared equals 25. So again, if we had to identify the center and the radius, positive 7, 0, and the radius would be 5. Alrighty, and last one together, and then I'll let you try the last one on your own. And again, if you feel confident, you can go ahead and do this one on your own. I'm going to rearrange to make that x squared plus 6x and leave myself some space. Y squared minus 12y and leave myself some space. And then I'm going to move this 44 to the other side. Again, it's positive, so I subtract it. If it was negative, I would add it to both sides. So I've got negative 44. Now I don't have a whole lot of space over here, but I do need to make sure that I add whatever number I add to the x part here and whatever number I add to the y part over here. So when I look at this, half of 6 is 3, 3 squared is 9. Add that to both sides. Half of negative 12 is 6, 6 squared is 36, so I'm going to add 36 to both sides. And then we'll do our shortcut for factoring. Alrighty, so on this side we'll go ahead and combine those. So this would be a 1 when we add those together. So minus 44 plus 9 plus 36 would be positive 1. When I do my shortcut for factoring, half of positive 6 is positive 3. Half of negative 12 is negative 6. And that's it. We are done with that one. So our center is negative 3, positive 6. Our radius is the square root of positive 1, which is just 1. Alright, now for the last one, you can try this one on your own. Alright, you can pause the video because I'll work it out so you can see what it looks like. But go ahead and pause the video, work it out on your own, and then you can play it to see what your answer should be. Alright, so first thing I did was rearrange it, leave myself some space. Half of 2 is 1, 1 squared is 1, so I'm going to add 1 to both sides of the equal sign. Half of 18 is 9, 9 squared is 81, so I'm going to add 81 to both sides of the equal sign. I don't know what just happened there. Let's see if I can fix that. There we go. Alright, so 81 to both sides of the equal sign. Alright then, parentheses. Half of negative 2 is negative 1 squared plus half of 18 is positive 9 squared equals, alright, so we combine these, so that's negative 45 plus 81, that would be 36. Alright, so your center is 1, negative 9. The radius is the square root of 36, which is 6. Alrighty, so now we're going to practice a little bit of changing both directions from general to standard, standard to general, and a little bit of just general review.